Back here on CSS on Hurricane Game Day, joined by University of Miami assistant coach Gino DeMari, also in charge of hitting. And Gino, of course, longtime player at the University of Miami, longtime coach. And then you took a little break, and now you're back. Let's talk about that. Why did you come back? Why was it important for you to come back?
Well, it was timing. For me, everything was timing. When I left in 2008, my wife and I had 3 kids. We had 2, actually, a 3 and a 1-year-old, and she was pregnant with our 3rd child. And for me, recruiting certainly took a lot of time. I was doing most of it myself. Back then, you could do it as one person. Nowadays, it certainly has changed. But I was traveling a lot, and I was away from my family, and I'd been coaching here for 12 years. So the timing for me to get out was the right time. And then, 3 years later, certainly wasn't expected. They had a change. Coach Morse had a change in the staff, and him and I had spoke. And it was just a perfect time for me to come back, and I'm very grateful and very happy to be back.
How has the game, college baseball, how has it changed in the last 3 years?
Well, first, the recruiting's changed. The kids are being recruited more heavily earlier. Kids are being looked at more in their freshman years, sophomore years. You're seeing kids commit earlier and earlier. I'm not a big fan of. I think if you polled most college coaches, they're not big fans of. But this kind of was starting my last year. I could see it happening, and I didn't like it, and it's gotten out of control now where kids are committing so early, and I just feel like this is probably their biggest decision they're going to make up to this point in their life, being 18 years old, now 15, 16 years old when you're talking about freshmen and sophomores, and they're making decisions on schools that they really don't have a lot of education about. A lot of these kids aren't even visiting the schools, or they're going on unofficial visits, or they're not really getting to know the staff and the players that they're going to play for, or the school. So to me, it's a lot different. You're having to make really fast decisions on guys that you're trying. It's hard enough to project an 18-year-old kid, let alone a 15, 16-year-old kid. So that's one thing that's changed. The bats have certainly changed since I was coaching. The bats have changed a lot. They've toned down the bats. I think that's actually good. I know they did it for the main reason was for injury prevention. Now I'm a hitting guy, but I'll be honest with you. I think it's neutralized the game. It's given probably a more fair advantage for both teams, and I'm certainly I'm happy with the fact that they have done it.
I want to ask you more about the hitting part of it in a moment, but staying on recruiting for a second. I'm always amused when I hear, especially from 15 and 16-year-olds, and often it comes from mom and dad, verbal commitment. What kind of pressure does that put on a coaching staff? It's a verbal commitment. It's the good news, bad news, isn't it? Because sometimes it's only coming from one side.
Well, the verbal commitment is, it's funny how that word or that is defined differently in sports. In basketball and football, kids commit and they bounce around schools all the time. Be honest, in baseball, when a kid verbally commits, you have the kid stick with that commitment. And it's not 100%, but for the most part it is. And so you better not make mistakes. A lot of things can happen from a kid from his freshman, sophomore year to his senior year, whether guy gets hurt, a pitcher can blow out his arm. A kid might not get any bigger. He might not get any stronger. He might not get any faster. You just don't know. You try to do the best you can to project guys, but the verbal commitment is it's a handshake basically, and it's not official until they sign the national letter of intent. But in baseball, it's about as close to being official as possible.
You mentioned the new bats, that you like them. How does it help you coach hitting? Because the bat now reflects more of what the game was supposed to be about and reflects more of a wooden bat.
It hadn't changed the way I coach hitting. It's the same. I mean, we're still trying to the guys, they're supposed to be hitting the ball in the sweet part of the bat. That's the way you're teaching the guys to do that back in the day.
But some guys thought that they could hit just...
Well, they could, because you could get away with getting jammed or hitting it off the end of the bat and still being successful. Now you can't do that unless you're really, really strong, and you can get away with it like the guys in pro can, maybe some of the guys that get jammed, but are so strong they're able to do that. But the bottom line is you got to hit the ball in the sweet part of the bat, and that's what we're teaching. You got to hit the ball to be a good hitter. You got to hit the ball to all fields, and that's what we're teaching. I haven't changed anything as far as my philosophy as coaching and hitting. I think the thing, though, with it that has changed is you're not going to see that 5'9", 150 or 60-pound guy knock it out of the ballpark on a consistent basis. It's not going to happen. You've got to be strong. You've got to have bat speed in order to drive the ball out of the ballpark now. And that's why you see the numbers down. The home runs are way down. Runs scoring per game's down. Everything's down. All the stats are down. I think it's good, though, for the future of the game. It's good for the future. I know the pro guys got to like it because it is more similar to what they're used to. And I think it's only going to help our hitters.
Are you generating enough runs this year?
You know, I haven't even looked at the stat as far as runs per game. I should know that. I know I spoke with you last night and talked about some of the stats that stick out to me that are very, very important. And if those stats are up, then we're going to score runs. Are we scoring enough runs? Probably not. Not on a consistent basis. In order to score runs, you got to have 9 guys in the lineup that are given good at-bats. You can't have, and this is where we've kind of faltered, we've had 2 or 3 guys in a lineup being hot and then, you know, 3 or 4 guys cold, and you get that inconsistent wave where you want to have, if you can, it's not always the case, but you want to have 9 guys as hot as possible, and that's not going to be the case all the time. Certainly at the end of the season, that's my goal, to have 9 guys in the lineup that are going to be as hot as a group as any team in the country.
Tell me what it's all about.
Back on Hurricane Game Day here on CSS, joined now by University of Miami senior pitcher Eric Erickson. And senior would be accurate, 6 years. It's been a long time, Eric, and you were able to come back. You've had a couple of injuries. What's it been like for you to come back this year?
It's been nothing short of a blessing. I've worked very hard, you know, a couple surgeries and, you know, a year recovery for each of those surgeries. You know, it's been a wild ride, and you know, I've worked very hard to get back to this point, and you know, the University of Miami opened their doors for me, and the NCAA helped me get here. So I'm just really happy to be here and happy to be competing again at the college level.
After the injuries, and you started off with a great career, but after the injuries, what was your thought process to come back to the University of Miami rather than just trying to say, okay, I'll show the pros in an independent league or something like that?
You know, I didn't know the University of Miami was going to be an option for me until, you know, until about halfway through the year. You know, I was just trying to get back into throwing shape and get back on the mound, and I didn't really know where it was going to take me. You know, but we started looking into that 6th year of eligibility, and you know, I sent in all the paperwork I had to send in to the NCAA, and the opportunity, you know, opened up for me, and I jumped all over it.
What kept you motivated to get through the 2 arm surgeries?
My love for the game. You know, that's just how it is. I'm totally committed to baseball. I love it. You know, I love it. I love you know, I love the ability that I have to go out there and pitch, and you know, you know, I love the game too much. You know, I wasn't even thinking about walking away for it, not even for a minute.
Are you a different pitcher today than you were when you first set foot on the campus?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've grown up a lot. I've done a lot with my mechanics, and you know, I've matured a lot as a person and as a baseball player. So overall, I think I'm a much better pitcher. You know, my preparation, you know, going into each week is much better. You know, so I just feel like I'm more prepared, and I feel like I'm doing the team, you know, I'm doing the team a lot of favors.
You've gotten off to a good start. Are you pleased with the way you're throwing?
Yeah, you know, I'm really pleased with the way I'm throwing. Each week's a learning process, you know, because I'm working on something different each week. You know, whether it's you know, with my mechanics or, you know, a different pitch, because, you know, I've been out of the game for a couple years, so I still, you know, for the most part know what I'm doing, but you know, it's fun to work on different things and just try to get better each week.
You know, I told you this the first time I saw you pitch, which was as a freshman, and you came on in relief, and you got out of a jam. And I always said, one of the things I liked about you is the tougher the situation, the tougher you become, which I think is a really good sign of a pitcher. Maybe talk a little bit about the mental toughness when men are on base.
You know, I like pitching with men on base, and that's just a reality that you have to face as a pitcher. You know, there's going to be people on base, and you know, they're looking to score. So if you can control that situation and you know, keep your head in the game, and you have those extra gears, you know, that you can elevate your intensity, you know, or whatever you want to call it, you know, that's always going to work into your favor. So controlling the running game is something that I'm working on. And you know, I want to be great at that, you know, by the end of the year. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. But, you know, I like pitching with runners on base. I like that pressure.
Well, the Hurricanes are ready and primed for this weekend series against the Clemson Tigers on the road at Clemson. We'll join you next week right here on Hurricane Game Day. For head coach Jim Morse, I'm Joe Zagacki. We'll see you next week here on CSS.
Tell me what it's all